Hello, everyone, and welcome to Spoilers Obviously. I'm your host, Joel, and with me today, my sister-in-law, Jessie.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Doing good. Very excited.
Very excited. Our very first episode for our new podcast.
In English.
In English, yes. We do have another podcast in Hebrew. Same subject, concept. So in this podcast, we're going to talk about movies, TV shows, and what is the most talkative show or movie as of right now. We're going to try our best to keep having episodes once per week or every other week. We'll see.
You got to keep the shows and movies coming, but yeah.
Yeah, we will try to be as updated as possible. But as of right now, our subject that we are going to talk about is Stranger Things season 4, the last season that came out about 2 weeks ago. Was part 2 that came out?
Beginning of July.
Yeah. So let's get into this. For anyone who doesn't really know what is Stranger Things, I'm pretty sure everyone already knows what Stranger Things is. But in case any listeners over here don't know what Stranger Things is, let's give a quick brief. What is it? Jess, do you want to take over or not really?
No, I can. Okay, I can say that Stranger Things is a fun show that focuses on dynamics of a bunch of teenagers and a few parents and goes down into stories of what happens when they find out that their city, Hawkins, is actually paired with a whole alternate reality called the Upside Down. And we progress and we sort of grow with the story, with the characters, and with the conflict from when they're kids all the way till the angst of teenage years that they're in right now. And of course, the Soviets.
And yeah, for some reason, the Soviets, this show does take place in the 80s. So it's very 80s style. And one of the main base of this show is D&D, Dungeons and Dragons. It's very crucial for the show, and it's very important and it's very awesome how they basically portray all the Dungeons and Dragons characters, like the monsters, into the show. So it's really fascinating. It's really cool. You can find it on Netflix. So yeah, it's a great show. I fell in love with this show from the very first season. We just finished, as we said, season 4. And just out of all the seasons, what do you think is the best season? What was your favorite season?
Season 4 was my favorite season. But the truth is they're all really good. There's something special about the first season, kind of getting to know all the characters and as they meet, and it just establishes the whole storyline, which was so different than what had been out on Netflix or on any of the streaming platforms. And it somehow has enough conflict, drama, and action, but no matter what, it just stays a fun and light show. You just fall in love with the characters. You feel like you're one of the friends of the group. And so that first season was also really special. But this season, the 4th season, just blew my mind. It was so fun. I've watched it twice.
Really?
Yeah.
I definitely agree with you that this season is absolutely the best season. It's so good that it made me like, I have to watch everything all over again. So I'm now on season 2, and which is season 2, ironically, talking about best seasons, season 2 is the worst season. It was absolutely a huge flop, but they did give us an absolute kick with season 3 and season 4. But anyways, we are here to talk about season 4. Well, our theories will be for season 5 and expectations. What we do know as of right now that has nothing to do with season 4, since season 1, they did confirm that it's going to be only 5 seasons. So season 5 is going to be the last season. I'm not sure, but I think they said that season 5 will come out in 2024 and not 2023. I'm not sure about that, but that really sucks if that is true.
I do expect big things though, and they need time to do that. The way they left off season 4, there's big expectations for season 5. So if it takes until 2024, it's understandable.
Yeah, I can totally agree with that. But it does kind of suck. I can understand why there was a big gap between season 3 and 4 because of COVID. But what is the reasoning between 4 and 5? There's no COVID now. So what's the reasoning? If it is what you say, like, they gave us huge expectations for season 5 because of season 4. So they need a bigger budget, better editing, and all that. So okay, I can understand. But if it's not something that's like, well, now you're just being a-holes and not giving me
And
what I
the
want.
kids are growing up. There's a limit with a show like this when you work with kids that are growing. They have managed to maintain everything as the characters are growing and the group dynamics between them, and we still feel the same connection to them. But there will come a point in a few years where they're going to be almost too old to be there to play their characters. It'll lose something. So I think they have to, keep track of that.
Well, so it's funny. It's funny you say that because there was a big gap between season 3 and season 4. People are already saying that because if you look at the characters at season 3 and then you look at them at season 4, they aged 3 years in real life, but in the show they aged only 1 year. So it's like, yeah, something is off over here. This makes no sense. Like
Yeah,
you can see puberty hit them really hard. I can totally agree with you. Like you are on time over here. Like your time is clicking out, and they are like about to be too old to play. 16-year-olds.
yeah. I mean, I think they did a pretty good job with it. Even though we notice it, there's always that leap of faith you have to take when you watch shows and movies. It is life. People grow, but they did such a good job with it, especially with Mike's character. I loved his adolescent, just naive boy character that they turned him into this season. And I don't know, it worked. They bridged the gap, but I don't know if they could do it, in another 2 years.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think they can push it for another 2 years, and make us believe oh, they are 18. Right now, all the kids are 18 to 21. So in
Right.
2 years from now, it's like, yeah, you're gonna be 20, to 23. So it's like doesn't you can see the age on their face and their body. So season 4, we start with our characters. Some are in California, some are in Hawkins. 11, who her real name is, if you remember, is Jane,
Right.
and she's in school with Will, and they live in California. She is getting bullied, and she's a weirdo. She lost her powers in season 3. I don't exactly remember why, but I will remember once I rewatch it. But she loses her powers, so now she's like a regular girl. She has telekinesis powers, and Will is also in California with her. He, from season 1, he was always the kid that was fucked over every single season. The first season he was kidnapped. The second season he was controlled by the mind flare. The third season, I think he got kidnapped again or controlled. And this season 4, nothing happened with him. There was nothing special with Will. But
Only personal stuff. His character was going through personal stuff, except at the end. We got one clue at the end that basically told us that he was sitting quietly this season, but season 5 is going to be all about Will. And we knew since the beginning. I mean, he was the only kid with the slugs and with the connection and the back of the neck. And
yeah, so the explanation for that is, like we said, Hawkins is possessed like the upside down. Only Hawkins. It's not the rest of the world for some reason. And Will was in California, so he was not affected by Vecna. He was
right.
He was free of Vecna. But once he entered Hawkins, he once again reconnected with Vecna. And that was the big issue, and why he is now getting fucked over again. Well, will get fucked over again by season 5. But we get to meet new characters, and my favorite character is Eddie, and he absolutely stole the show. He did an amazing job, and they killed him off. Here's a spoiler, everyone. They killed him off, and that was absolutely painful for me.
Yeah, he's a great character. and he fits perfectly. And I think with all the characters, it's all about how they create dynamics, and he had good dynamics with everybody. The scene with him and Erica, I just fell in love with him. Um, right before they go to play D&D, and they let her in to fill in, I think, for Lucas. But I kind of had a feeling they were going to kill him off, because the show is they sort of keep a certain lightness to it, even though it's all about Vecna and it's heavy. It's still a fun show, so they can't kill off any of the main characters. They just can't. It would become too heavy. So Eddie.
Yeah, I did see an article. The director said from the very beginning we saw no hope for Eddie, so he was destined to die. And the reason he was destined to die, he is in a D&D club called Hellfire, and back in the 80s, D&D, if I'm not mistaken, just started or became really famous, popular. But a lot of people didn't approve of it because, Dungeons, Dragons, Satan. A lot of people also didn't approve rock music back then, even though the 80s is the rock era. But there were those people who did not approve of it, and fanatics, and it did go overhand. So over here, like, oh, D&D, it's, you praying to Satan and all that. Your club is called Hellfire, which is satanic. So they did believe that Eddie was a satanic worshiper. And we do see later on in the first episode, a cheerleader, goes to Eddie because she has headaches and she wants to smoke weed and to relieve of the headaches. But then she dies a gruesome, horrible death. And when the police find her body, and they find her body in Eddie's trailer where he lives. So they immediately blame him for being a satanic. And later on, it continued happening. People keep dying, and they continue to blame Eddie. Like, this is all on you. You worship the devil, and this is why all these bad things happens in Hawkins. And what happened in Upside Down, how he was fighting the bats. And this is something I was talking with Adam about in the other episode, podcast, the Hebrew podcast. So when they were in the Upside Down, Eddie decided not to escape. He decided to stay in the Upside Down. And I said, well, listen, if he would have escaped, all those bats would have gone with him to the real world. And let's say he was able to get, because they were in the middle of the woods, let's say they were able to get to civilization with other people. They will all see here is a satanic worshiper who brought an army of killing bats. No matter what, Eddie is destined to die. If he survives in the real world, he goes to prison for the rest of his life. If he stays in the Upside Down, he dies. So there's really no point of him living. So they gave him a horrible, gruesome death, but a heroic death.
I think part of it is also we get attached to Eddie and we see his weakness. Like, we see him and Chrissy, the cheerleader, and their dynamics, and they have chemistry. Just the actors have chemistry. And we see him as, this guy that's kind of in the Hellfire Club and kind of keeps to himself just with his group of friends and doesn't necessarily fit. And then, but we see him struggling after Chrissy's death, because aside from running from all the jocks that are trying to kill him and everyone that's trying to kill him for what they think he did to Chrissy, he has tremendous guilt. So it's kind of fun watching him redeem himself.
Yes, it really was. There was an interview with the actor, and they asked him, do you think Eddie had a crush on Christy? And we don't see anything really happen between them because she dies later in the first episode. But he says, yeah, I do believe he had a crush on her when they were younger, or even back, right before she died. So it's interesting how you say there was a chemistry between them, because here you saw it. I personally, I didn't really see it, but he himself agrees that yes, there was could have been something between them later on.
It's the ultimate team. It's the cheerleader with the kind of nerdy guy in what everyone thought was a cult club, which is really just a nerdy D&D club.
Yeah.
So, and the cheerleader. And then I think it was kind of fun that scene in the woods, even though she was like having hallucinations and losing her mind, there was still something fun between this cheerleader and this nerdy guy coming together and being like, oh, we really like each other. Like, you're cool, you're cool.
Yeah, exactly. You know, he's a nerdy guy, but at the same time he loves rock, he loves metal, but he's a Dungeon and Dragons master, you know, which means he needs to know all the rules about Dungeon and Dragons. So you can't really hide your nerdiness, even though you look cool with your long hair and your jeans and your shirt. You even gave a Lord of the Ring reference, which again, this is the 80s, so that's super nerdy, you know, even though Lord of the Rings is one of the best amazing worlds ever. So, but yeah, so moving on. So this is a summer break this season, and Mike, who lives in Hawkins, is going to see his girlfriend 11 for the first time in
Ah,
almost a year, and
Mike,
that's
so much to say about him.
yes. And this is where now, for the first time in all these seasons, our group actually splits up. We have some in California and some in Hawkins.
And
And
Hopper, that's in still stuck in a Soviet prison.
right, right. Hopper was kidnapped in the last episode of season 3, and he's now in Russia. So there's like 3 different storylines happening over here. So like the entire game is completely split off. We get new characters, and we get like, you know, 3 different stories of it, which is completely very very new for how they, you know, tell a story in Stranger Things. So Mike goes to California. He meets Will for the first time in almost a year, and 11, and they go and hang out. And 11, you know, she lies to him like, "Oh yeah, I have friends over here. Everyone likes me." And we see it's like it's not true. You are a closed girl. You know, you don't like to share. You know, you're telling him your life is amazing, but we see your life is just a regular life, you know, school, home. You don't really have any friends. And Will, he also is closed up a bit. I personally didn't pick it up, but you did when we were talking in private. You told me that you think Will is gay for Mike. On part 2, we actually do see that that's true.
So I think there's like a lot of interesting dynamics that happen when we're watching the storyline between Mike and 11 and Will. Mike, first of all, he's like, his character is just, I don't know if it's just that he's kind of just a teenage boy. And I mean, with all due respect, teenage boys are, you know,
Stupid.
stupid. So first of all, he's missing cues left and right about 11. I like the scene when she's just getting absolutely terrorized at the roller rink by Angela. I think her name was Angela. Instead of rushing to the roller rink to meet her, he's going to the DJ like, "Stop the music." It's like, what? Why? And with Will, a few different times, I think it's sort of communicated indirectly, but it seems from my perception that Will is one, the scene when they're sitting in the van and he turns to the side and he's crying, and Mike is just in his own world, doesn't even notice it. Which he also didn't notice at the roller rink when the girls came up to 11. And I know boys don't speak girly bitchy code, but it was pretty obvious that they were that they were being mean to her. And he just like sitting there drinking his smoothie at the roller rink, drinking in his own world in the car. So Mike is kind of like in his own world. But Will is obviously giving something off to Mike, whether he's trying to tell him that he has feelings for him specifically, or maybe he's just trying to come out about his sexuality in general. He's missing cues from everybody. He's just like a teenage boy.
Exactly. But the thing is about Mike, because I'm rewatching everything, he missing cues from the very first season, like when Lucas and got all pissed off about Mike because the weirdo joined the group,
Right.
and Dustin tells us like, dude, how can't you see it? Lucas is your best friend. You know, you guys lived together your entire life. Yes, I joined the group from 3rd grade, you know, but you and Lucas were best friends from like kindergarten, and now you're all focused about 11, and Lucas is pissed off because you're not focusing on him. You like kind of threw him to the side. So Lucas got all pissed off, and this is in season 1. And Dustin said, like, how can you see, like, everyone else sees it, but you don't? So over here, now that we see that Mike is missing, social cues, he's been missing social cues from season 1. So it's not really out of his character. He's just
Yeah,
not.
that's totally true. And I think they haven't taken any direct approach, at least yet, about Will's sexuality. Everything is kind of communicated in the underlying communication, whether it's between Jonathan and Will. And we kind of see Jonathan watching him, knowing something's going on, knowing that there's something. He tells him, I love you unconditionally, whether it's to Mike, whether it's Will saying that he's different than everybody, and that when he's different, he feels like a failure, which is kind of similar to Eleven. Like Eleven, no matter how much she tries to fit in, she can't because she's different. So Will is kind of going through the same thing as Eleven, but just for different reasons. And they're, living together as siblings. So I think we sort of see all these indicators, but it sort of begs the question, like, are they going to address it in season 5? Is that something that they're building in just to create something that's a little bit more relevant to the current culture in the States and the discourse in the States? Is it, it's something also we're waiting to see in season 5. They definitely created something around his sexuality. So now they are going to have to do something with it.
Yeah. I personally had a problem with it, not because, I'm homophobic or something. I had more of a problem because it's the 80s. And I hate it when, TV shows and movies, they create a movie or a show about a certain time period. So this is the 80s. How often did you have kids coming out of the closet? They already told us that Robin is lesbian. Okay, no problem. But how often did you have kids coming out of the closet? Not that often, especially in the 80s. Nowadays, yes, you have it like every 2 kids. One of them is so it's like 50% basically nowadays. But back in the 80s, I feel they only did it to represent. We need to represent the LGBTQ community. This is my problem. I don't have a problem with the LGBTQ community. I have a problem that you're putting stuff that are relevant to my time period into a time period that is not relevant. For example, let's do a movie that takes place in 1853. Okay. Back then, most likely, you had slaves. Will I see a movie where there are no slaves? Or will I see a movie where the Black person is a slave owner? It's like, that makes no sense for that time period. Again, yes, slavery is horrible. It's inhumane. I'm totally against it. But when it comes to telling a story, tell it right. Don't put in stuff that are relevant to my time period. So Stranger Things takes place in the 80s. There are not that many gay people, at least not people who came out as often as they do now. So the fact that they're shoving a lot of, here he's coming out, she's coming out, that is coming out. It's like, dude, I don't want to see that because it's not relevant to that time period.
Right. And I totally agree. I think if they were going to do it, they could do it in a way that would have been more accurate to the 80s on how someone would go through the struggle of coming out and dealing with the identity that might not be widely accepted. And I don't know why, if they choose to go this route with Will's character, it doesn't even bother me as much, even if it's not necessarily accurate or doing its like justice to history. But I really, just on a personal level, because like we said, we feel so attached to this group, and there are certain things that like I don't want them to break the group. And if Will has feelings for Mike, and he has this bond with Eleven, there's all of a sudden this much deeper conflict within the group. Obviously they fight, and obviously, like, they have to tell each other sometimes, like, you're acting like an asshole and you're being blind and you're not seeing what's right in front of you. And they go through what any group of friends that face the challenges that they have would go through. But this would be something much deeper, which kind of begs the question, like, what are they going to do with Will? Similar to Vecna. They have this like history between 11 and Vecna, and they could take Will to the dark side, not the Star Wars dark side, the Stranger Things upside down dark side. But you never know, and that could already create a rivalry. Like Will has feelings for Mike. Mike doesn't reciprocate. 11 is dating Mike, loves Will, but then there's this conflict. Or it's just something that they're mixing in. Like they could have made him gay without making it toward Mike, and then I think I would have accepted the character more really.
Yeah, I think that, because I don't need now a new problem as like here's a love triangle conflict. It's like
Yeah, we have that with Nancy already.
Yeah, we have that with Nancy. We have that in Twilight. We have that in other movies and TV shows. I don't need more of that. I don't want more of that, especially that this show has a lot going on already. So I don't need you.
Just it's not relevant to anything. It's like just a whole side story that would just be like thrown on top of something where it doesn't belong.
Exactly. And how is this motivating the show or the storyline? It doesn't, like me personally, I don't see it motivating the show or the storyline at all. So
as of now, it didn't. It depends what they do with it and what they turn it into in season 5.
Yeah, but I'm saying as of right now, I don't see any relevance or importance for it as of right now.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. There's nothing that it gains. And if anything, it just makes it a little bit less believable, because if Will is having all these very, very strong feelings towards Mike, and there's sort of like this boundary that's getting blurred. Like he said, you didn't call me, you didn't talk to me, you didn't anything. He's like, well, but you did 11. Well, 11's my girlfriend. There's like a lot of things that are sort of getting blurred between him and Mike. And he keeps making these like emotional talks with Mike. But then I want to believe that Will and 11 have this connection too, because they have been through, so much, almost living as siblings since Hopper was taken, and they've healed from that together. And they went through the year of school where it was extremely hard for both of them together. And so I really love and need their connection to be real. But then if he has all these feelings for Mike, then it's like, okay, well, something isn't real somewhere. It can't be this and that, because it's just, there's too many conflicts of interest. So I think they kind of have to figure out and straighten out exactly what they're trying to build with these characters.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. 11 tells Will to draw a painting to calm him down so he can, focus. And we do know throughout season 1, 2, and 3 that his drawings are very important to the storyline. They actually tell us a story and they give us answers to what is happening. So he draws this painting and he tells us no one can see it, not even 11. 11 asked him to draw this painting. So throughout the season 4 part 1, which was the first 7 episodes, we don't see the painting at all. We don't know what is it about. Once we do see the painting, which is on season episode 8, which is already part 2, we see the painting and we see it's Will who draw himself and the rest of the gang, but only the original gang, which is Will, Lucas, Dustin, and Mike, fighting as their own characters, as their own D&D characters, fighting a 3 or 4 headed dragon. As I said, I rewatched season 1, and I think in episode 3, the episode where we find out that Will is dead in season 1, Mike looks on Will's drawing and we see a dragon head, and we see for D&D characters, which is their own characters. So the painting he painted in season 4 and the painting drawings that he drew in season 1 kind of reflect each other. And because there's going only to be 5 seasons, so we are finally starting to get answers to a lot of questions, also a lot of theories. We still didn't really talk about our, bad guy of this season, and because each season we have one bad guy, one main bad guy, but we finally find out who is behind all of this, and his name is Vecna. And
/Henry/1.
Yes. And the thing about him First of all, his storyline, his arc is absolutely amazing. Like, oh my God, unexpected, like completely amazing. But there's a theory about him that we actually saw him in season one. And I have to say, it is true. We did see him in season one.
When did we see him season one?
So the very first episode of season one, go to 5 minutes. So you see the first 5 minutes, and from 5 minutes, that is when Will actually gets kidnapped. Will is on his bike and he sees a weird shaped thing with long fingers, which Vecna has long fingers. And then he falls off his bike, he runs into the woods, and he goes into the house and he locks it with that, chain lock. But then we see the chain lock opens as, telekinesis power, like moves. Now, the main bad person in season one is the Demogorgon. We do know that the Demogorgon don't have any powers. They don't have any telekinesis powers. Who does?
Right. They just work for Mind Flayer, for Vecna, or whoever. Are Mind Flayer and Vecna the same?
No, Mindflayer is a cloud that Vecna created. It is a certain animal beast thing that does belong to the Upside Down. But
So it's part of Vecna. It's part of his hive mind of the
yes,
Upside Down.
yeah,
Okay.
he was able to connect to it and build a hive mind. But anyways, Demogorgon has no telekinesis powers, so that's one. We see a creature that looks like Vecna. Two, we see the telekinesis power unlocking the door, and three, it's not in the habit or in the nature of a Demogorgon to kidnap. It's in its nature to kill and eat. It is in the nature of Vecna to kidnap, because we do see in season 4 he does kill and kidnap.
Right.
So it's kind of interesting. Not only that, we also hear a clock ticking in the background.
In season one.
In season 1, yes. We
Wow.
see, yeah. Not only that, we once again hear clocks ticking when 11 opened the gate, when she goes into the dark room, like in her mind. So in season 1, she goes into the dark room multiple times. Each time you don't hear clocks ticking, but the time she sees a Demogorgon in the black space, and she sees a Demogorgon, she walks to it and she touches it. In the meantime, you hear in the background a clock ticking. So way back in season 1, they reference Vecna, and they did kind of showed him to us, which was very, very interesting. So that is,
well, it kind of makes sense, because if you think about it, 11 put Vecna into the Upside Down. She didn't create the Upside Down, but she somehow put him there.
Yes.
And season 1 is shortly after 11 escapes from Papa.
Yeah.
So if you think about it, 1 is just starting his time in the Upside Down and starting to understand how it works and how to become this, turn into Vecna. And the fact that he starts to take Will, but it's done so differently than it is in season 4, where he needs kills to open the gates, and he understands, he has a plan, he knows who he's taking, he knows who he wants to torment, he knows who he wants to kill. He has everything figured out already, just like 11 does. But in the beginning, he was kind of trying, I think, with Barbara also, the friend Nancy's friend, I think her name was Barbara, who he killed. And with Will, and the way everything happened in the beginning, you kind of see he's like a rookie.
Yeah.
He's learning, and you can see he doesn't really know what he's doing yet, even from his side. But by the time you see, he builds with each season, and it starts with more just being in the Upside Down and what physically happens to Will and what happens to Joyce and Will as Will's figuring out, also learning the Upside Down and how to communicate. But as they progress through the seasons, you see Vecna now can enter people's minds, and their body doesn't have to be in the Upside Down. And he's also learning and growing. So it makes total sense how he was in season 1, and that it was Vecna. And then now look at what he's become and what he knows. He came back ready with a plan of physical and psychological warfare.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's amazing how they showed us how he progressed without even us knowing that was him from the very beginning.
Yeah,
It-
at the beginning, he didn't know what he was doing. Probably he was
yeah,
just learning. He was very strong. We knew that from the beginning. We knew him and 11 had powers that were more or less on the same level. And yeah, but they both needed to hone and practice their powers. Now it went the other way for 11, because of course she's the underdog. So now she's recovering from not having powers and having a year of just being, kind of isolated, whereas Vecna has a year of fighting and planning and psychological warfare and starting these bridges. So we're in for a fight.
yes. Season 5 is going to be a hell of a season and insane, a lot of fights. But if we're already talking about, theories, because, what I said about Vecna in season 1, that is a theory. It's not actually confirmed yet. The directors did not confirm it, but it is a theory. So here's another theory about Barbara and Will. Why did Barbara die and Will survive during season 1? So in season 4, before I say what have happened in season 1, in season 4, what we're talking about right now, we have our character Max, who also did an absolutely amazing job this season, but she was targeted by Vecna to be one of his sacrifice. His big plan is eventually to open 4 gates that will connect into one in the middle of Hawkins and create this huge gate that will connect from the upside down to the real world and just unleash his power and destroy the world. That is basically his motivation. But to do that, he needs 4 sacrifices. And one of them happens to be one of our main characters. Her name is Max. And when he attacks her and she flies in the air, we find out what can save her is music. For some reason, music is the key to not defeat Vecna, but to escape from his torment, I guess.
Yeah, from
Control.
his darkness, she
For,
had to find the music, the light, the happiness, the way back to, the light.
yeah, and it can be any music. It has to be your favorite music. So that's the thing. And now back to the theory about season 1. What did Will always sing to himself to comfort himself while he was in the upside down? Should I stay or should I go
Should I? Right,
now?
of course.
He kept singing that while he was in the upside down. Well, while Barbara didn't sing at all. Yes, she was,
No, she was just running and scared.
exactly. So it's also really cool how they kind of reference that music is very important in this show to, not defeat, but, to overcome the dark and this darkness in the show. So it's really cool. And
That's cool.
yeah. And the Hebrew podcast, I was talking with Adam and his theory about the drawing, like I said. So there's a dragon and our four characters. Adam said, why didn't Will, draw or paint 11 since, she told him to draw this drawing? And he said, what if she is the dragon? What if she is the enemy? Like we see as she's not the enemy, but Will doesn't see her as if Will doesn't see her part of the game. There is a scene in season 1 that Lucas freaks out on 11 right before she, throws him off. And he says, did any of you even stop to think and consider maybe she is the bad person over here? Later on, he does say in season 1, I'm sorry, I was wrong. You're not the bad person. You're a good person. But if you do take all these little references from season 1, it kind of could hint that yes, she is a bad person. Because if you think about it, all of this happened because of her. She's the one who opened the gate. She is the one who threw one to the upside down and created Vecna. She is the cause to every bad thing that happened to Hawkins. Yes, she did not mean for it to happen, but she did it anyways accidentally. So she could be actually the bad person over here that needs to die. And I think if they do kill her off in season 5, it will suck, but it would technically be justice because she is the bad person. Like everything she did.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, we know there's something that I do expect to be developed more in season 5, which is this connection between Will and Vecna and 11. Okay, so Vecna and 11, we know their history. We know that they were at Papa's little experimental whatever that place, and we know that he saw something of himself in her, which is why he wanted to help her and started telling her, hey, Papa's lying and I'm going to get you out of here. And he took it upon himself to help One. Why? Because he saw something of himself in her before we even knew he was One. He was just some orderly that was working at Papa's lab. And he would watch 11 try and struggle and try and struggle and try and struggle. And he wanted to help her and only later revealed to her who he was. So we know already that there's something else. I don't believe for a second that Henry, or One, way before he was Vecna, actually felt enough of a inherent benevolence or goodness to just help this other kid that he saw some commonality with. There's something between him and 11 that goes deeper. We don't know if there was overlap before they got to Papa. We don't know if there's some connection between them and their powers that makes them bonded. And we know that there's still this connection between Vecna and Will, because there were other people that went in and out of the Upside Down, Max, Nancy, that were even in Vecna's grips, but none of them have that connection where they feel him the way Will does, or where they have the slugs coming up like Will does. There's nothing. Will's the one who still has part of Vecna with him. He's even the one that's able to tell us he's not dead, he's hurt, but he's coming back. So I think they're going to have to sort of go into these backstories because they're creating this web of dynamics. So we don't really know everything about 11. I mean, we don't. We know only what we learn from the gaps in her memory that she sees here and there.
It is a fair point. Yeah, I do expect to get all our answers by season 5. Again, it's the last season, but there's like a lot of things that are going on. We haven't even talked about what's going on in Russia yet, but yeah, Will, and you can kind of say now Max and 11 are connected to Vecna. Like Max, what happened with her? Also, absolutely horrible scene with her. Like when her leg broke for the first time, it's like, holy shit, and then her other leg, and then both her arms, and then she started bleeding from her eyes. Like you see, Vecna is, going to kill her. And there was a big mind battle inside of Max's head that 11 joined in. It's very confusing, but there was a big mind battle with 11, Vecna, all happening inside of Max's head. But at the same time, they were in the Upside Down, and Vecna was kind of, fucking them over, controlling everything. He killed Max and his last sacrifice. And he was able to
kill Max.
He did kill Max. Because he was able to open all the gates. What happened later is 11
brought her
brought her back. Exactly, because she brings her back, and then later when she visits her in the hospital, she looks again in her mind, and there's nothing. Why is there nothing? Because she is brain dead. A person who is brain dead is technically dead. So
right, but we don't know what it's going to mean for Vecna. We don't know. All we know is he opened the gate, but he didn't we don't know. We don't know 11's effect yet. What she was able to change by bringing hopefully Max back.
I think it would have been better if they left Max dead. I can see some potential with her still being semi-alive. Again, she is brain dead, from what I understood. Vecna can stay in her mind to heal himself, to occupy her mind and just regenerate. can also be inside of Will's mind at the same time and regenerate. So in the meantime, he can wait and heal himself. Soon he will attack again. He did succeed with his plan, opening all four gates into one gate, but he's currently kind of pushed aside because he's very badly hurt. How will he come back? How will he get stronger? I don't know. They did destroy his body. He did tell us that he did try to find a way how to survive without a body. So I do believe we might see him in season 5 in a different form, not the same form that we see him now. If he did able to survive without a body, how will you kill him? Because he can just jump from body to body if he doesn't need a physical body. So
It's true.
It's
and it's something we've seen him progress with. Like we were saying before, like he started with the physical, like he had to take Will and he had to take Barbara, and he physically took the body into the upside down and they died. But now we see that he's progressed to be able to kind of take over. There's the psychological taking over people's mind, and they don't even have to be connected to the upside down. He can take people wherever he wants, in the high school, in the woods. So yeah, there's potential for that. Totally.
So yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see how he is going to die, because we do know, well, at least we hope that they're going to end the show with the good people winning and not like the bad person wins. If we go for positive ending, so it will be interesting to see how they defeat Vecna. If it goes to we don't care how it ends, good or bad wins, I have no idea how they can end this show. Either way, I have no idea how they can end this show.
And they could blur it, that they have characters like Will, they're setting him up. Will, they could take either way in season 5. They can bring him to the bad side, or they can keep him. He's a complicated character. So they might blur it, good and bad, and who wins and which characters fall to which side.
I won't be surprised if Will goes to the dark side. Like I know it's not his character, but because he was screwed over so many times, every season is like it doesn't take an entire year, but between each season is 1 year. So it's basically he's been tortured for 4 years now, and now season 5. So it's like I can see how he will finally go to the dark side. Vecna will convince him or just control his mind or whatever. But since we do each season, we usually do get a new bad guy. What if we will get a new bad guy for season 5? Like it could be Vecna. Maybe Vecna will even die in the first, few episodes. Will still be good, but we will get a dragon. Like it's called, like this show is based off Dungeons and Dragons. I'm pretty sure that we should see a dragon. We should see our group battle a dragon, especially season 1 we see a drawing of a dragon. Season 4 we see a the team fighting a dragon. The end of season 1, the last episode, they play D&D again, and Mike puts it like a little character, a dragon with 3 heads. So it's like, I think they kind of referencing that we will see a dragon in this show. So it will be interesting if that will come to play and see our characters fighting a dragon.
Yeah, I think, first of all, Will, since season 1, as his friends are getting older and Lucas is chasing basketball and Mike is chasing girls and Dustin is chasing girls too, even, and, his own stuff. Will just always wants to play D&D. That's all he ever wants to do. He just wants to sit with his friends and play D&D. Since he was a kid, it's almost like his world of D&D is like better than his reality. So I think we see him kind of getting blurred, and so we'll see what they do with him. This is kind of like representing its own D&D, and that's where he really wants to live, is in the D&D world. So, and you never know, the dragon could be symbolic. Like it could be Vecna that is also these other, I don't know, We'll have to see. We'll
Yeah.
have to see. I still don't think I'm completely sold and clear that Mind Flayer and was just a creation of Vecna and whatever this gate that's connected between whatever they have in the Soviet Union to Hawkins. There might be two or three major bad guys that we are sort of watching but aren't aware of directly. I still haven't like completely broken down and understood the dynamics and what the relation is between Mind Flayer completely with Vecna, with everything, these demigorgons and everything we see that keep popping up all over the place, especially in the Soviet Union, where they obviously have some link to the Upside Down there too. So maybe there's a third.
Yeah. There could be a third thing. About the Soviet Union. So obviously the 80s, and there was a lot of conflict with the US and Russia. So they also portray in this show. And from season 1, we see, there's a little conflict over there. We really didn't really touch on the subject of our gain, what's happening in Russia. But we see Hopper in prison over there. And there's a prison guard who is kind of trying to help him escape, but for money, and obviously a lot of problems going on. And then we have Joyce and Murray, go to try and save him. Murray's an absolutely,
I love Murray.
Yeah, he's an absolutely amazing character. He's funny as hell.
Black Cobra.
Exactly. He's really good in karate. He defeated once a 15-year-old kid. So,
in his dojo.
In his dojo.
With supervision.
So he can obviously defeat a KGB, god. We have our, gain in Russia, and now for the first time we kind of get a bigger picture of how the Russian opened the gate, and because they also created the gate somehow, and we see they have demogorgons, they have dogs, and they have that cloud thing. I have no idea how they got that cloud, but they do have a cloud that I don't know what it does. It's the same cloud Vecna found in the Upside Down, but they kind of destroy everything. Hopper had an amazing fight with a sword against a demogorgon. Joyce did have to save him because he almost died.
Which is also redemption, because she didn't save the last boyfriend.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't have saved him either, but she didn't.
Come on, you have to save Samwise the Brave. Come on.
Samwise the Brave, yes, but not Samwise the Brave, long gone and older and dating Joyce.
So they do a lot of referencing to Lord of the Rings. I'm watching season 2 now. I hope to see if he will say a reference to Lord of the Rings. I don't remember if he does or doesn't, but if he does, I'm going to be completely stoked. Because also in this season, they say, "Oh, we have to go to the Shire. The Shire's on fire. Let's walk to Mordor." Or in the first season, they call it Mirkwood, which is where Bilbo was, and with all the spiders. So they make a lot of references to Lord of the Rings, and it'll be really awesome to see if he did. Anyways, so our game finally did destroy the Russian base. They were able to escape Russia and come back to the U.S. And for the first time in a year, Hopper is now back with his daughter, his adopted daughter, 11. And now, they're all preparing, to attack Vecna in season 5. During this whole fight scene, all of our characters were in trouble, like almost dying. Like they were captured by Vecna. We had the bully, with a gun on Lucas. 11 and Max were fighting Vecna in the mine battle. Like a lot of stuff were happening. And I was
Robin, Steve, and Nancy.
Yeah, they were in the house with Vecna and like tied up. So in the entire scene, like, oh my God, like someone is going to die. Eddie was fighting the bats and giving us one amazing rock show. And the entire time, like, oh my god, like everyone is gonna die over here. But they killed off only Eddie, and semi killed Max, which I still think they should have killed her off completely. But yeah, that's, if I'm not mistaken, that is more or less season 4 of Stranger Things. Unless if you have anything else.
More or less, that's it. I always wondered if they're going to bring Victor Creel back. This poor guy that's been rotting away in prison, that believes a demon killed his family. And I don't know. I don't know if it would be better for him or worse for him to know that it was actually his son that did all this, stuff to him. But I hope that they'll bring Victor back in season 5 and give him some closure. But it depends what direction they go. Like you said, they can just leave it as total mayhem and chaos, or they can kind of close it. But I have a feeling even in season 5, something is going to be left that we're not really sure what happened.
That would suck if that would be kind of ending. I was often thinking, what if they're going to do another horrible ending that after the show ends, we kind of like zoom back as if, and we see our characters on the playing D&D, and they'll be like, oh my god, that was such an insane game. It's like, you motherfuckers, this entire show was just a D&D game, and we just saw what they were playing. Oh my god, you felt like, if that's what's going to happen, if that's going to be the ending, it will suck so much. And I think it'll be one of the worst ending shows. Like Game of Thrones had a horrible ending. How I Met Your Mother had a horrible ending.
Sopranos. You know what? People didn't like the ending because it left on a cliffhanger. But if that was a way, I don't know if you ever watched Sopranos.
No, I didn't. But
they did it well.
I never watched Sopranos, but I do know that Lost also had a horrible ending. So it's like, if you guys do the ending that I just described, you will be added to the list of great shows, horrible endings.
They won't, though. This is at the end of the day, this is a feel-good show. They want people. It's fun. This is a fun show to watch, even with the drama and the relationship stuff and the demons and all the tension. At the end of the day, this is a show that you sit down when you want a fun show, like, to get excited and to get pumped about a show. And I think they've been very true to that to the beginning, and I'm sure that they will keep it that way through the end.
Yeah.
Which was part of in this season. It was very satisfying to watch Papa die and to watch Eleven finally have that satisfaction of getting up and just walking away.
Yeah.
That was a fun scene.
There were also a lot of funny moments when also the pizza guy was, dude, my dude, we need to shop, my dude, let's make pizza. It's like,
yeah,
he was an absolutely amazing character. I wanted to say before I forget, so Victor, the Vecna's father, do you know who that actor is?
No.
Freddy Krueger.
Really?
Yeah, that's the actor who played Freddy Krueger.
Oh, wow. Well, he came back to the other side.
Yeah.
And he's scary. Like that scene where he turns around and his eyes are like all.
Yeah, that is messed up. What's amazing about this show, because it takes place in the 80s, they reference a lot of 80s stuff. And in this season, it was all mind battle. And Freddy Krueger, he battles in your dreams. So it's kind of the same thing that's happening.
That's cool. Yeah, there were a lot of little things like that. Like I love when they're looking for Rick to try to find Eddie when they're in the video shop, and they're going like one, and they go, okay, this one is all chick movies. No, Cheech and Chong this, and it's all these 80s stoner movies. They're like, yeah, we got them. And of course they did. Read for Rick. So, I mean, there were a lot of cute things like that, which is part of, again, it makes the whole thing fun. It was part of what in the last season or whenever it was where they busted the Soviets in the mall because of what they heard on a little kid's merry-go-round or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's just fun. I miss some characters. Like they didn't put enough Erica. I love Erica. They went to such lengths to develop her character in the last season, and she had a few good scenes here, but they could have done more with her character. And Jonathan and Mike and Will, I probably would have wanted to see a little bit more of them too, but I think we got enough of what we needed out of their storyline.
Yeah, I totally agree. We obviously didn't talk about all the storylines that happened in this season because it's 9 episodes and each episode is like an hour and a half, except for episode 9, which
Like
is
2.5 hours.
2.5
almost.
hours. So obviously we're gonna miss details here and there, or more than here and there. So it's expected. And also the show came out like almost a month ago. We will try for, in the future, when other shows and movies will come out, to be as close as possible to when it was released. But until then, this is the episode about Stranger Things season 4, part 1 and 2. This is the podcast spoilers, obviously, and I'm your host Joel. And with me today is my sister-in-law Jessie.
Thanks for having me. This was really fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Thank you for joining. Can't wait to do more episodes with you in the future. Once again, we have a podcast in Hebrew called Spoiler Min Hastam. I'll put a link in the bio. You can also go ahead and listen to that. We will have more episodes about whatever movies, TV shows. Until then, we are spoilers, obviously. Goodbye, I guess.
Yeah, this was awesome. And thank you to everyone on Stranger Things, because after Corona, it felt like there was just nothing to watch for a very long time. And then this came out, and it wasn't just something to watch, it was great. So it was about time.
Yeah, it was, definitely.